Welcome to my cellar. And for those of you who celebrate it, Happy Hanukkah. And for those of you who celebrate it, Merry Christmas. And the solstice is coming up. So for all the pagans, happy solstice. I think that gets it all. My eyes are going to be floating back and forth because I couldn't get my printer to print. So my script is on a narrow bar down the side. Well, I call it a script. It's a bunch of notes. Well, first off, we'll start out with Steam. It's been fixed. Finally. Thank you for the numbers of you that did try to reach them and send them mails. One man opened an account and then immediately complained because he couldn't play with me. In any event, it all of a sudden, here it is. And so now I've got second party stuff, so it'll only go to my phone and should be secure. But thank you, all of you who did do something about it. And I'm glad to be back wasting my time on Scythe. Wednesday we play tested a Tom Wham game. It's cards and dice, silly, fun, everything Tom's games are known for, and we're play testing it for somebody who's interested in seeing if they can kickstart it. And then we played Scoville. And I'll tell you, Scoville by TMG is a devilishly little game, a devilishly complex little game. In that, if you think ahead, we'll put it this way: only three of us played this time. So there was a lot of planting done until all the deals, until it was time to end the game. And so there's a lot of blocking got done. I lost by a pepper, basically. And it was just really fun. And I can only imagine it was 6. It must be a real gas because there's so many more peppers planted, so many more opportunities. And I'm eagerly awaiting my copy of the expansion to the game. So, yeah. Back to wasting time the best way there is, gaming, which is, of course, not a waste because it's mental exercise and keeps me from going buggy. Let's see. All right. That's Steam. Okay. I still have all my D&D stuff up to AD&D 2E, aside from the basic and expert set. No idea where they went. Unfortunately, there seems to be little to no actual groups that play D2E and below. I use D20, but since I'm an old guy, I like the old ways, i.e. sitting around a table. I don't really care for the online play, but it's the only place I can find first or second edition D&D. Not knowing where you live, how large the city is or whatever, I don't know how many friendly local game stores you have. I would go to each one and ask, can I put up a little sign looking for, 1E or 2E players? And if you're in a large enough area, you may find a few others like yourselves that like to play the old school, sit down, have a good time, get your fingers messy on orange food, and drink soda pop until you're in a diabetic coma. That's old school, maybe. That's the way to go. Again, I don't know the size. If you have friends on Facebook that are in your area, or just put a thing on Facebook. Hey, this is where there's a thing you can do. I haven't done it, but you can locate yourself and show people where you're at, and I'm looking for. and see what happens. I would not be happy if I could, if I was a player, I would not be happy if I couldn't find people that played the way I wanted to play. And my way is not the best way. Their way is not the worst way or the best way. And mine, that doesn't matter. You like to play the way you like to play. And I am a great believer in the physically sitting around the table. Though I do play Scythe online and we chat, we still chat. So the camaraderie, the ribaldry, the needling, you don't have to give that up. Other than that, I really don't have any advice to give you. If you're in a larger area, it doesn't matter where the friendly local game store is, because if people want to play the editions, I mean, I live in Cincinnati and I have a friend that lives 28 and a half miles away. And if, he comes and plays board games with me, with us every other Wednesday. And if we were playing RPGs, I would drive the 28 miles if it was a game I wanted to play. So, it's your transportation availability, the size of the area. And if you're way out in the sticks and the boondocks, look at finding a group that's 30, 40 minutes drive away that meets on the weekends. I don't know. Those are the only ideas I can come up with right off the top of my head. My head's very warm tonight. As you can see, I have my good Santa hat on. Has your experience running games been more enjoyable with adults or youths? Or, as Joe Pesci would say, youth. I have to say adults on the whole, because I've played much more with adults than I have with kids. Having said that, I've played with some groups that were mostly adults that had one or two really, really fun, really interesting to watch players, and I look at it from obviously a different perspective. I just like seeing young talent blossoming, and I like to feed it and encourage it. And I've had some interesting moments. But to be honest, I think some of the best games, especially since I've been running the Wheel of Blame, are with mostly grownups or all grownups. In fact, I've decided this year coming that I'm going to run some games for any age, and I'm going to run some games for 18 and older. And that way, the players can take it wherever they want to take it, wherever they're comfortable. And I always, make a disclaimer at the beginning that anybody feels uncomfortable and, I'll turn the corner and we'll go somewhere else. Never had that happen. I've had some really, really good games with ladies that were more than willing to be just as bawdy and suggestive as the guys, or when something just grown-ups. Though the most fun I ever had was with college guys, of course, in Carbondale. They'll always be my best and most famous and greatest group. But you may understand that. Okay. Here's an interesting question. Have you met any miniature sculptors or artists? Julie Guthrie is my favorite. I've never met her, but her detail speaks for itself. Who are my favorites? Yeah, I've met a lot of them. Obviously, I've been in the business for a long time. I know Duke Seafried. I know Julie. I met her when Ralph Partha brought her to Cincinnati. And Julie is one of the best animal sculptors working. Her animals are just so dynamic and real looking. And I mean, her other stuff's very good too. But I always thought her animals, especially her big animals, like the grizzly type bear she did once for Partha. I knew Dennis Mize. Dennis Mize is one of the best sculptors I knew ever. Of course, I'm still friends with Tom Meyer, who is by far the finest sculptor I've ever met. Whether or not there are better ones out there, I'm not going to get into that argument. If so, I haven't seen their work yet. I've met a few others. I've met a couple of names are escaping me now. I knew a couple of the Reaper sculptors. A friend of mine, who I've spoken of often, my wingman, my buddy Jim Wampler, he's a great cartoonist, by the way, has taught himself to do some cartooning type sculpts that he's done originals of, so he can present this big 3D game at GaryCon of the Awful Green Things from Outer Space. And watching him in a very short time come as far as he has so far, and I'm sure he'll tell you he's not a fine art sculptor, has been fun to watch as he's taught himself. I met most of the old-time sculptors back in the 70s because we were all at the same cons. The names escape me now, but I agree, Julie's quite good. Now, painters, if I met painters, but that's another time. What kinds of things got put in your Christmas stocking when you were a child? I like this question. And, here we are a few days before Christmas. What better time to ask it and answer it? Okay, now hold on to something. I was born in 1949. All right? So I'm on the cutting edge of the baby boomers, and I grew up in the 50s. From about 52, 53 on, I was aware of my surroundings, about 3, 4 years old, okay? And I remember the Quemoy incident with China, and anyway. Always a really spectacular orange or apple. Perfect, the kind you see pictures of. And they would get them at Lagos or one of the fruit vendors in town. Some walnuts, some pecans, in a shell, of course. Little things, gum. I remember when Matchbox vehicles came out in little boxes, very nicely lithographed boxes. And if it was a good Christmas, I got 2 or 3 of those. It might be a horse and a dairy wagon and a horse. Might be a car, might be a truck. Those Matchbox collectibles now today are worth gazillions of dollars. But I might get a couple of those. Candy cane always. Maybe a little something small that was a small, inexpensive gift, but they might, they knew I'd like it or something. Stockings were mostly edibles. That was where your Christmas candy was. That's where your nuts were. That's where the fruit, the tasty fruit, the special fruit. And that was a Christmas stocking in the 50s. And it didn't change much for my younger brothers either. Interesting, though. Interesting question, though. In 1982, I bought the DMG first edition for $12 at a local Toys R Us. Wonder how long it's been since they sold fantasy RPG stuff. Well, I can tell you it's been at least a few years, 2 years, 3 years, because they've been out of business that long. I understand that one independently owned one is reopened because they bought the rights to use the name or whatever. But yeah, that's a good point. Though today I went to a Half Price Books. Love the place. I collect Darby Conley and Stephen Pasta's collections of Get Fuzzy and Pearls Before Swine, respectively. And I also look for books for my grandbabies. And where was I going with this? Oh, they have a ton of games in there. Some of them, I'm assuming, are dogs because they have piles of unopened ones that I've never heard of. But to be fair, there are so many games out there. You would have to play games full time to be able to play them all. And even then, I don't know if you could because you'd have to spend so much time learning the rules. Excuse me. So I imagine it's been a while since they sold that. D&D's coming back now, of course. That beginner's kit or whatever that thing was, that sold like hotcakes. And it's coming back in a different edition. But as one of the contributors to the original, I don't care what they call it. It's great that they want to call it Dungeons and Dragons. That's fine. Wonderful. However they want to play it, that's the fact that they want to play it in whatever morph stage it's in, because everything evolves. I'm delighted. There are versions of knockoffs that I would never play. Anyway. Let's see. We got to get a little off. Okay. Do-it-yourself dice tray ideas. A couple of these are clever. Cake pans. Yeah, but when they're metal, they make a hell of a racket. And if your dice are heavy, you make dents. Sound like the voice of experience? Danish butter cookie tin. Better idea. High sides. Again, rattle. Don't care about the dents. When I say high sides, get one of them that's like this deep and about that big around. You just pitch them down in there. Now, if you want to take away the noise, put some felt in the bottom. Glue some felt around the sides. Cheapy, easy. Rubber mats and glue. Okay, yeah, you can make a fancy tin, but that's going to be large to carry. It's great for a home game. Cork board, that's also a good way to line it. And he said it was the most fun arts and crafts project he ever did. Sweet. You have a one of a kind. And a little while later, we're going to talk about my old box. There's another question. Now, I got a comment that I found just hilarious. Not because it isn't a good comment, but it allows me to tell you a story about the old days. In the old days, I'm talking 75 to 83, 84. This comment was, fill in the dice numbers with colored crayons, any color you want. Well, there was a time when that's what we did. We colored half the numbers. And we used a wax crayon and wiped it off across a taut cloth. Now, there was one person who carried it to the nth degree. And I do not tell this story to belittle the man, but to salute his ingenuity and hustle. And the man is Lou Zocchi. Zocchi. You should look him up on Wikipedia if you don't know who I'm talking about. The man is a stalwart, a pillar of the industry, been in it since forever. But first person to produce precision dice and guarantee, call them that and produce them. Anyway, many years ago, Lou got a deal on a whole lot of what were called plumber's pencils. They weren't a pencil. It's not like a carpenter's pencil with a big flat wide lead in it. These were crayons that plumbers used to mark pipes, especially the old lead pipes. They were wax. Yellow, white, red. I think those were the standard colors. And Lou bought a boatload of them. So he sold them as dice marking crayons, dice markers. And he made a very nice, tidy profit on them. And over the years, when you'd go see, those of us in the industry usually try to find a day when we could go around and see all our friends in the industry because we're all so busy at our booths and doing our own things. It never failed that when you went by and saw Lou, he was sitting back in the corner of his booth, coloring in, dice, throwing them in the box, coloring in. Because it's much less expensive to get plain dice. And that's what he did when he was at the conventions. He colored dice. Salute, Lou. Lou's a whole lot older than me and still kicking. What's my favorite medieval politics board game, if any? I like Fief, but I haven't been able to play it. Well, I hope you mean you haven't been able to play it later. Because, boy, there's a lot of games that I sat down with the rules and thought, oh, my goodness, this is going to be fun. Let's see. There's one called The Council of Blackthorn that I played once. It looks very interesting. I just have not been able to pursue it. My favorite medieval game is Fidelity, but that's a Tom Long game. Game set in the Renaissance would be Serenissima. Nice abstract game of trading, abstract warfare and movement. Not a game that I have much experience or many games in. I don't buy a lot of games, and I don't get given review copies like once upon a day. And so unless it really interests me, I don't invest the money. And even if it really does interest me, if I can't figure out I've got someone I can play it with that would also be interested, what's the point? All right, now here's an interesting philosophical observation. Lord knows we all need those at this time in the morning. I've been playing RPGs and D&D for a while. It seems to me that younger DMs often create worlds based on the source material, the rule books, and the pop culture tropes they're familiar with. However, it seems to me older DMs create worlds that are more expressions of their own ends, expressions of their own personalities. What do I think? Yes, but let me explain why. And I'm not mansplaining here. Let me explain why that is, I believe, from my gazillion years of DMing, my master's in education, my school teaching experience, and the fact that I've enjoyed teaching other people how to play games for a long, long time. They build the games out of what they know. A 22-year-old does not have the experience, the novels under his belt, the movies seen. They build with what they have. If what they have is sticks and twine, that's what they build with. We older gamers have learned how to cut down trees and build with logs and planks. That's about as weird as I'll get tonight. But you get the drift, though. You use the materials that you have. Now, I can promise you, if you found a 22-year-old that would take on the challenge to read Appendix N next year, at the end of that year, if you still wanted to play, RPGs, he would play a lot differently than just one chronological year would indicate. Because now he has source material in abundance. He's overloaded with source material. How can I spin these tales together? Yeah, we create worlds and we run games in our own personalities. The games I run now are low key. I don't do a lot of shouting or anything like that. We do a lot of laughing, and I'm real snarky in a pleasant way. I'm not anybody burst into tears and run from my table. I love your themes, dog. It's been stuck in my head for weeks. Please considering adding a Tim's Top 10 segment to the cast. I feel your fans would be interested in what your top 10 picks would be for modules and monsters and spells and fantasy novels and games, etc. Number one, that sounds like a lot of thinking and writing. When I pump a game in one of these episodes, you can be pretty sure I think highly of it. There's so many games out there to play. What I loved playing 25 years ago would bore me to tears today. Some of them. I'll never play another combat table game. Never. Where the whole game rolls around on a six-sider and stuff. Never. I'm much more nuanced now. I played those before I played miniatures. Books. I might make a list of books that I think all DMs ought to try reading, simply because of the different perspectives it will give you. I have found several that have made me treat both monsters and adventuring differently. Again, though, it's only what I like. You might have read two of them when you see it, go, he's full of it. What I like is shaped by my 3 weeks. It'll be 3.5 weeks. It'll be 71 years on the planet. Okay. One from way back. Must have been about this time last year. No, 2 years ago. From YouTube 13. Thanks for telling us about your Christmas in 1969. Well, you're welcome. Here I am now at my house. Oh, see that right there? Let's see, up over my left shoulder, about even with the top of the white band, that's the little Christmas tree we have down in the family room. Well, whatever we call this part down here. Anyway, Cheryl wrapped all the presents today. We baked up all the cookies. Tomorrow's fudge day. And stacked all the presents underneath the tree, so it looks real Christmassy now. My 6 great-grands, five biologic and one has been forcibly absorbed into our family, are all going to have little displacer beasts Christmas morning, little plushies. So it's getting Christmassy in that regard. Our children are grown. One of them lives in Texas. The other one lives here. So we don't even know yet how we're going to work it all, because the other parents have obligations to other family members. So it's all up in the air, but it's all good. fun. And I'm listening to all my weird Christmas CDs. Okay. Yeah, I told that story about that was my most special Christmas. One of the top three. One of the top three. They would be first Christmas with my wife after we were married. First Christmas with our daughter, our first child. First Christmas with our son several years later. And Christmas in 1969. So if you want to know the story, apparently it's back in YT13. That's how I was numbering those early ones. You've shown your cigar box dice tower. Yes, here it is. So simple to construct. This one, however, is a relic built in 1974. But I knock on the floor. Oh, I'll find it later. Can you take credit for inventing the first D&D dice tower, or was that common in wargaming already? I don't know about credit. This is what I can say. Having talked to several people in the hobby that have more of a broad knowledge because they've done research or written books about it or whatever, it appears that I'm the first one that used it as a regular feature in a D&D game. Keep in mind, there weren't a hell of a lot of games going on at the time, probably less than 100, campaigns, because a lot of people bought it and weren't playing yet, and some of them bought it, a bunch of them bought it, and they're all playing in the same campaign. There weren't a lot of them early on. I used it as it was an exigency. We only had one set of dice. But according to John Peterson, who wrote Gaming with the World, the authoritative one, yeah, I'm probably the first one to do it. Dice boxes were a form of a dice box. What we call a dice box has been a gambling device for thousands of years. Drop it in the top and see what it says when it comes out the bottom. Clickety, clickety, clack. So I certainly didn't invent the idea, the mechanics or the physics. But yeah, apparently I was the first one to use it in D&D. A really bizarre distinction, if you ask me. But okay, but there could be worse distinctions. This person loved how I tell us to get in the mood, be merry with an angry resting face. Well, I hope you saw that opening thumbnail. Grinning. You can tell I'm happy when the ends of the mustache turn up and the cheeks get round. That means that I'm pulling my face up, just for future reference. Yeah, I didn't invent it, but I used it. Okay. Food for thought. This might be a little ending piece from now on. I don't know. I was recently challenged on Facebook on why I would print or share something that was political. I've been quite politically on Facebook for a long, long time. But recently I decided not to. And I was shamed. And why would I do something like that? Me, a person that other people look up to. Well, that's not anything I ever consider. Beyond the fact of when I was a teacher, I expected a certain amount of respect from the rest of the people in the room. And as a teacher, I used to like to lob little odd comments out into the class, whatever we were talking about, just to make people stop a minute and stretch their brains. So I lobbed stuff onto Facebook every now and again. And I was called out for it. And I gave him a very long, very detailed reason why I was culling people. I had made a joke about culling people. So I'll continue to throw out little things like that occasionally, because I've always had this streak of pedagogy, I think is the right way to put it. I've always enjoyed teaching and showing and explaining to other people how to do something, teaching. And I just feel compelled to throw out these things to, oh, please think about this, think about this, think about this. So that's what I do. Now, in the same vein, watching Jeopardy tonight, the clue and the answer involved the author of Ben-Hur, who was a general in the Civil War, and Lew Wallace. And I told my wife he was, it was who wrote it, and it was Lew Wallace. And I said to my wife, yeah, he was a general in the Civil War. Oh yeah, I said, yeah, it was actually a pretty decent one. And then I stopped and thought for a minute, how do we assess a decent American Civil War general? And I guess it all boils down to, especially ones that got to where they were politically, he was really good in that nobody could hang a whole bunch of unnecessary deaths on him. He didn't order any stupid charges. He was a pretty good general. He treated his men well, he deployed them well. But what a rule of thumb, huh? Because God knows there were political generals that just killed hundreds and thousands of boys and men on both sides because they didn't know what they were doing. Anyway, all right. As I said earlier, Hanukkah's coming up. Christmas is coming up. Best wishes to all on both of those. The solstice is coming up. Happy solstice. I'll probably be on after Christmas again. And instead of my usual sign off, it'll be Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and Happy Solstice. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Called it Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Tight with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.